All right. Welcome back to Harland Podcast. We're talking about Big Brother All-Stars again because it's that time of year, Big Brother everything. We got a special guest here, Cliff from BB21, one of the most recent seasons of Big Brother. He did really good. Fourth place. Fantastic. So he's got a lot of knowledge on the show that some of us don't have since we never got to experience it. Trenton, Deja as well, so it should be a good one. So how is everyone today?
Doing good. Staying indoors watching live feeds.
Yeah, you're a pretty big feedster, aren't you? So everything that's going on right now. One of the questions I wanted to ask you right off the bat is, what do you think of Nicole and David's campaigning right now since they're both on the block?
Yeah, you know what? I think both of them, it's less about their campaigning and it's more about them being pawns for these different sides and which side and who thinks they can use them and not use them. Nicole's throwing Janelle and Kaser under the bus, and that may be her absolute only chance to stick around. Doesn't mean I think it's going to work. I think it's still a little bit iffy, but I don't know. So many people saying so many different things right now. It's hard to keep up with.
Yeah, I mean, this season's probably one of the messiest early games we've ever seen, but I guess what you expect when you put a bunch of all-star level players in together. They all want to play really hard. I know that since you know Nicole and David personally, what do you think is like Nicole's biggest asset in the game? What do you think David's biggest asset is in the game?
David's he was very perceptive in our season. And I think, now he hadn't done a whole lot in the competitions yet, but I think he's going to surprise some people, win some competitions. The other thing David, I think, has going for him is that everyone is underestimating him. No one really understands his game. We still good?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. I think people are underestimating him. They don't really understand his game. Now, the disadvantage is because he hadn't played much, he's having to get his feet underneath him, and I think he's feeling a little lost, a little overwhelmed, and there's a lot of people trying to manipulate him right now. But I think he'll be okay if he sticks around for a while. Nicole, I think Nicole's biggest assets is one, loyalty. Now, it's hard to do that until you figure out who's on what side. And right now, I think that's her disadvantage, is that there's so many people giving misinformation. You're having to fill in puzzle pieces that you don't actually have. And so it becomes difficult to make the correct read. And I think that's where she's having problems right now. If she could survive for the next week or two, where the sides are better defined, then I think she gets into her sweet spot where she's a loyal soldier that can understand what's going on the other side and really help out the people on her side. She has to get there first, though.
That's true. You mentioned how she was talking about going after Janelle and Kaser, and that might be one of her best ways to get the votes. But how true do you think that's going to be once the votes are actually revealed, and she might get more of an idea of who was actually trying to get rid of her in comparison to Janelle and Kaser, who were more loyal to her? Do you think that she'll change her target moving forward if she does stay?
Well, I think every week as you see the votes come out, it gives you more information, and certainly a lot of it's also going to depend not just on the votes, but who wins this next HOH and where the power structure starts next week. It's funny because I really think Nicole, in some ways, it's a lot like my season last year, in that she and I were on the block together, and on day 30, I ended up getting evicted. And a lot of the reason was because there were a lot of people that saw Nicole as being so upset with Bella and Nick that they kept her thinking that she would become this attacker going after those two, that they wanted to. So she'd kind of do the dirty work for the rest of that big alliance. And I see the possibility this week as well, where if she looks like she's upset enough against Janelle and Kaser, then they may keep her just for that reason alone. But then the question becomes, if that's the case, does she still go after them, or is this does it flip once she's safe and maybe she sees that were people really supporting her? Everything I've seen suggests that probably that's not the case, that she will go after them unless some information comes out that flips her back the other way. That's a big unknown. I think it's got as much to do with the HOH as it does who votes for who in this upcoming eviction vote.
I agree. I think that power, especially so far this season, is going to play a huge, at least for the first half, I think every season, power plays a huge impact on people deciding on who they want to work with moving forward. So I expect the next couple HOHs to probably have a huge impact on the game. Talking about power and HOHs, Memphis, he was in a really good spot last week, and it seems like he may have put himself in a little more of a terrible spot with his HOH this week. Do you think he played his HOH well, or do you think there's things he could have done differently?
It's tough because from an absolute personal standpoint, I think he played his game. He played the HOH well. He didn't need to be going in and backdooring either side and getting people upset with him. So from a straight personal, I'm only thinking about Memphis standpoint, I think he's done fine. The problem is we're so early in the game, and these alliances, there's 40 different alliances out there, it seems like. And if he's not careful and if he doesn't show other people that think they're attached to him, if he doesn't show that he's thinking about their game just a little bit, then they're going to be a lot less willing to watch out for him going forward as well. So that's kind of the danger of being HOH early. One of the stats I always hear is the person who wins the second HOH in Big Brother has never won the whole thing. And I really think it's just a matter of you have to show your cards a little bit early. Do you burn people and get people upset, or do you take the easy road and then get some alliance people mad at you because you aren't working hard enough to protect them, which is the perception.
So I'll just add on to this. I feel as personally, I'm with you on the Memphis. He played well, but I think Memphis let power get to his head, as everybody was very upset at him as the way he not treated David, but the way he spoke to David, the way he made him say, "This is the grown-ups table now. You got to make your way in," and how he picked him right away for slop. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think you have to split up your analysis of his gameplay versus the way that gameplay was actually put in place. And I don't have horrible issues with what he did, but the way he did it could have been so much more delicate and so much more friendly. Yeah, it's too early. You don't want anyone mad at you at this point in the game, and especially David or Nicole. I'm the optimist. I'm cheering for Nicole. I'm cheering for David. So it kills me that someone's going home this week. It just kills me. But being the optimist, I also know no matter what, someone is staying this week, and someone is getting another week worth of playing. And someone may be a little upset with Memphis because of the way he called them out. So I don't think it was necessary. I don't see what his thinking was to intentionally alienate some people. And
I was saying that I think that might be like an older style of gameplay versus like the newer style, because like I think that they were just a lot more blatant and like cutthroat in the older style of games. So I think he didn't really like get the memo on like be a little bit softer.
I think you're right, and I started watching Big Brother in season 8, Evil Dick and Janelle and all that. And so I saw some of the seasons, but I missed everything before that. But I did see some of those earlier seasons, and it does seem like everyone's a little bit more in your face. And I'm not going to pussyfoot around. I'm just going to go after my targets. Look at Dick. He was a perfect example.
Yeah, even in 8, even in season 8, like all the way, I would say up until like season 13, they were like pretty cold.
And I was trying to think where it changed, and maybe somewhere around 16 or so, Cody's season, maybe a little before that, where you started to see people being a little more trying to make relationships with everyone and not anyone upsetting anyone else.
Yeah, gentle, a safe game to say in some way, like kind of like not trying to stir the pot at all, whereas like it's so bizarre to see that change. I wonder if it'll ever go back to that old style where everybody wants to stir the pot.
You know what? Maybe it'll depend on who wins this particular season of it. It's really fun. I got to say, I really like this cast. That they seem like they did a good job of going all the way from the early stages of Big Brother into just Nicole and David from very last season. So they got a lot of range of different players and different seasons. So it's been fun watching these people clash and see who's going to win out.
Same. I love this. I love this cast. This is a good pick.
They're fun. It's stressful. I've been trying to watch these feeds, and I mentioned at one point it seems like it was all misinformation. Everyone's saying something different to every single person. And then last night, I guess people started picking up on that, and the word I kept hearing over and over again was fact check. Let me go do some fact checks. Let me check this. So, but it's hard to figure out, and we had a little bit of that towards the end of our season where everyone is lying to everyone to some degree, and you don't really know who's telling the truth, where the loyalties lie or where they don't. You can't rely on what's being told to you. It's going to come down to the votes and who gets nommed over the next weeks, and that's the only way we're going to figure out who truly is supporting others and who's just gassing them up.
It's so hard to tell, like, even when you're watching the feeds, like, who is, like, truly loyal to who, because it's almost like they're so believable that, like, I'm believing them. Like, and so it's like, wait, I don't know where you actually stand anymore. Tell me some diary rooms.
I watch these conversations and something happens and I go, oh yeah, that sounds fantastic. And then they go into the next room, they talk to someone else and say, oh yeah, I just got all this information. I don't mean any of it, but I pulled in a lot of stuff from this person. So at the end of the day, who knows? They're playing a good game. It's a messy game. There ain't anything clean about it. But that kind of, as a house guest, if I was in there, I would be so stressed out. I would be just, my hair would all be gray by now because it's just so stressful. The fan watching the show and seeing the fireworks that are going to erupt here in another couple of weeks, I'm really excited from that standpoint. I would hate to be in there and having to deal with it, though. It's got to be stressful for those people trying to figure that game out.
I know. I feel for Nicole so bad.
Oh, I just want to reach out through the screen and give her a big old hug and then have a little conversation with her. And
She needs her TV dad.
Oh, well, I remember last year, I'm sitting in the boat room saying, oh my God, live feeders, if someone just could come in and give me 5 minutes, I would give up half my potential winnings just to find out what really is going on. And if I had Nicole, give me 30 seconds and we could have some conversations that would help everyone in the game. But alas, I don't think that's going to be allowed.
Nope, probably not.
Oh, it's tough because I guess I still have a little PTSD from last season. I know Nicole or then people said, oh, she came in right after last season and it's tough for her. And I kind of get it because I just think so many things that happened. Her and David sitting on the block, and it just makes me think back to when Nicole and I were sitting on the block and how you want to stay, you want to campaign, you want to do what it takes, but you still feel so bad that a friend of yours is going to pay the price if you're successful. And the idea that so many people are whispering in your ear, telling you so many different things, and you just are this little bit of information and you're having to grab everything from everywhere and figure it out. And I think this season is even worse because at least last season, other than Holly and Kat and other than Tommy and Christy, no one knew each other. And so we all started off with clean slates. Whereas with All-Star season, so many of these people have been in the Big Brother world, the community, for so long. They know each other. I know there was pre-gaming that took place. I know there's outside influences that affect different people. And so it makes it that much tougher to get a read on the room. And then you have Nicole and David who just came out. They haven't had a chance, especially with COVID and all that. They just haven't had the chance to interact with all of these people as much as some of the older players have. And so it just makes it even that much tougher to develop the relationships and figure out just where you are and who you can trust and who you can't trust.
I feel so bad. I wish I could, I don't know. Like you said, like do something to make it better. And I also feel like they could have totally used the fact that they were on last season. Like he could have easily said, you guys were both on last season and it's just easy to throw you up instead of like rolling with the big dogs. Like it's just like
the first couple of weeks, that's the whole idea, is you're trying to put people up, but you're looking for any excuse, any reason whatsoever so that no one gets mad at you. And Cody talked about that last week, saying, oh man, if it'd been an HOH competition, I could have just put the two people who fell off the log first or whatever the comp was, but he didn't even have that option. And then Memphis just, I I kind of get Memphis' strategy. He didn't want to go after any huge targets because then they may come right back. You know, there'll be blowback on them and everything. So I guess he just saw Nicole and David as being the lightweights that weren't a huge threat to his game, and so it makes it easy to put them up. But you're right. It would have been easy just to say something that wasn't quite as upsetting and get people stirred up against you. But that's the first time he ever won HOH. He never had won an HOH during his seasons before. So I guess he is learning just like a lot of other people in that house right now.
Very true. So I'll move on to a new point. You're a live feed watcher, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you currently see there's like two sides developing. There's Janelle, Kaser, Davon, Bailey, Ian, and David, if the possibility if he stays. And then there's like the other side, Cody, Tyler, kind of Memphis, Christmas, that kind of six group.
Yeah.
Which side do you think will succeed better, or are you personally rooting for? All that kind of stuff.
Well, we'll start off with which side I'm rooting for. And I was the older guy in my season, so I think I've got a little affinity for the older people in the house that are trying to survive with everything that happens in there. So even though I'm as new school as it gets since I was just last season, if I had been in the house, I probably would have gravitated a little bit more towards the Janelles and the Kasers and such. But a lot of it if I was in there, it would depend on who was approaching me and all of that. But I think I'm kind of cheering for the old school a little bit. As far as who I think's gonna win, I don't know. I mean, Kaser and Janelle certainly seem like they've got a target on their back. Memphis hadn't necessarily done himself any favors with the way he talked, this week. So I maybe have to lean towards the new school side, and within the new school, I think Tyler is playing a pretty good game right now. He's letting Cody kind of lead the pack, and he's laying a little bit lower, and I think that's a pretty smart strategy for him. The wild cards, I think, are Davon and Bailey, because even though you've kind of got new school and old school, you've got two of them that are trying to tread the middle and can. I think they're going to have a lot of effect on some votes coming up, so they may be able to stay and control some of the power as well. So I don't know. It's going to be fun to find out.
That's some really good points. So what do you think about Enzo? Because it's clear that Enzo is probably closer to like the Cody, Tyler kind of side, but right now he's not in a solid 6, so he's definitely in more of a middle position. What are your thoughts on Meow Meow or Enzo?
Well, the first thing I got to say is I forgot how much I liked watching him play the game until watching him. He is just
same.
Forget about strategy part. Just from an entertainment standpoint, listening to some of his stories and all of that, he's just a fun guy to watch on Big Brother. His background, he was kind of in a bro alliance when he was on the show, and so it seems like that's what he's gravitated towards a little bit right now. I think he's in a pretty good spot in that he's not the primary target, but I think and even though he's not maybe the key of an alliance, he's also solid enough that I don't think the new school side's going to be in a huge hurry to get rid of him. I made a prediction last week. I said I can see Enzo going far. I can certainly see him making pre-jury. I could probably see him getting to like a 3rd place position, 4th place position. Yeah, 6. I mean, somewhere right up towards the end where eventually some of these ride or dies are going to say, we love you, Enzo, but you're out the door at this point. But I think he's got enough loyalty that he'll get carried quite a way without him actually having to do a whole lot in terms of taking his own actions. I don't think he's going to have to win a lot of HOHs or anything else. He just has to be the loyal guy that agrees and votes the way they want.
It's so fun to be around. He's so fun to be around. Like, whenever they were playing charades the other night, I don't know if y'all saw it on the feeds, but he was like the sole guesser. He just kept guessing, and they finally were like, Enzo, you can't guess anymore. Like, let everybody else guess.
I love this. They were doing a live feed one night talking about jobs they didn't get, and he told a whole job about being a crayon salesman. He went around selling crayons in New Jersey, and he's just a fun guy. Right now he's my leading pick for America's favorite player. That could change completely, but early goings, I'm just enjoying that guy. Yeah,
I like him. Do you think that Cody is trying to play like almost like a Derek game, and he's like flipping it around. So Memphis is him in his season, and he's the Derek now.
Yeah, I definitely think, and he's talked about it quite a bit, said, oh, Derek, I wish you were in here to help me get this stuff up. And he's mentioned that Derek would always try to get him calmed down and settled, don't act too emotionally and all of that. And I think for the most part, I think it was smart for him to win the HOH. It allowed him to go in and consolidate a lot of power around him. And I think especially for All-Stars, that was important. Obviously, he's got Nicole Franzel, and it seems like she's a bigger target than he is. So he's got a little protection in front of him. But, boy, the other side, eventually, he's considered a big player. So I think somewhere – I don't know. I think he could make jury, but I think he's going to be a big enough target. It's going to be tough to get as far as Derek did. Derek was never nominated. Derek, smart as he was, I mean – he was incredibly smart, and part of that was just him not presenting himself as a huge target. He was just kind of the guy that was there and playing the game, but no one really got upset or viewed him as the biggest threat in the house. I'm not sure Cody's playing that part of Derek's game as well as Derek played it, and I think that's what's going to eventually come back and bite him.
He has to keep up on comps or he'll show, but then it's almost like you'll keep up on comps and it'll build you as a bigger target, so I don't know.
Yeah.
He's kind
damned if you do, damned if you don't in that situation. You're right.
Yeah. Poor guy.
Well, I did see him in Memphis talking about, oh, we'll just exchange. You win HOH, and I'll win HOH, and back and forth. Well, they work in some places, but in Big Brother, where some of these comps are just random, roll the ball or different things. You can't rely on winning every competition. You've got to have that social game to protect you. And if he's so focused on that, then yeah. Like you say, every time you win an HOH, that one time that you falter, suddenly you're a huge target for a lot of people in that house.
Mm-hmm. So here's something going back. So I'd say from about season, like almost every season, let's be real. You see the first HOH, normally everybody goes up to them to make some sort of bigger alliance, but I don't think we really seen that this season with Cody winning the first HOH. Not many people were approaching him to make these alliances. What are your thoughts on like that kind of situation?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's certainly different from my season where we had that huge alliance. We had a huge alliance, and we had all the rest of us trying to just fight and get a spot in there, or at least get someone to watch out for us within that big alliance. Whereas you're right, with this one, you've got Cody and you've got different people, a lot of people approaching him, but he's not creating. And in fact, he's mentioned this on the live feeds. I don't want an alliance of 7 or 8 people. That's too big. There's no way it can sustain itself. And it seems like, and maybe it's not a new strategy, but I'm seeing more people talking about, hey, let's just have a very small group, but each of us will then bring in someone else that thinks they're part of our group, but they're kind of the accessory that if we need to knock them off, then so be it. No big deal. And you kind of have your group and then the group within the group and doing something like that.
So it was kind of like Sam from your season with Undeniable, where he was.
Yeah. What?
He was easy to go.
You had the 6 shooters, then you had Grateful 8, then you had Undeniable. So we had a little bit of that, but at the end, you still had just one big group that was trying to control and run things, and they did for a little while until some things changed. But Ian pointed out yesterday or the day before, he's got a pretty good read, I think, at times, and he talked about as much as you're seeing different alliances and all 60 different alliances and all of that. At the end of the day, you really are seeing a lot of people falling out into duos or couples, and that as much promises as are being made and everything else, it really gets down to those duos are the only ones that are trusting each other. So that's the core of every one of these alliances is one duo or 2 duos that are just bringing others in. And again, some of it's because this is an all-star season. These people know each other. I don't care what people said before the game started or when they first started. If they played in the same season with each other, if they run in the same social circles, I'm thinking they're ride or dies until the very end on this stuff.
It only makes sense.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I do think that like in the future seasons, because like I think just because of everybody being so already into it and their resumes are all built, like I think that's probably why they didn't go up to Cody to like come for alliances and stuff. But like, do you think maybe now, since All Stars will be like fresh in the books on next season, if people will not run up to the HOH just because, or if it'll just go right back to the regular
there's a part of me that thinks it'll go right back to the way it's always been, and it's just because when you get in that house, you're so overwhelmed in the first place, especially as a newbie. And to some degree, these all-stars get in there and they say, hey, I've already played, I'm already an all-star, well, whatever happens happens. They aren't playing with as much fear. But when you're a newbie, man, when I got in there, all I was thinking is, just let me survive the first day, and then let me survive the first week. And so I think everyone tends to play with a lot more fear. And because you're playing with fear, because you don't want to be that first evictee no matter what, it becomes very attractive just to go up to that HOH who has that power and promise anything in that first week. Is just like in Survivor and Sandra, it's that anybody but me strategy. I don't care who you send out the door as long as it isn't me.
Very well.
Yeah, I feel like maybe Nicole could have used a little more fear prior.
Oh yeah, she. It's just hard to read the room when you've got such strategic players in there, and unfortunately, you have to make assumptions. And to some degree, the person that she teamed up with as a bit of her duo was Kevin, who I'm not sure. Kevin has always made some good reads, and he tends to be very. Everyone's paranoid inside the Big Brother house, but I just feel like Kevin's an extra level of paranoia at times, and he has he's been able to grab her ear, and we're seeing the result of that. So yeah.
Would you have done All Stars? I don't know if I can ask that.
No, yeah, in a heartbeat, I would have done it, and yeah, I laughed. I said, yeah, I played last year. I was the older guy. There's always a slot for the older guy. But because this is an all-star season, they already grabbed 4 or 5 older people from All-Star. So there goes my slot. And
no.
So yeah, no, it would have been a lot of fun. It would have been a blast to get back in there and try it again, and especially because this year the ages are skewing up. Yeah, I was 30 years older than a lot of people in that house last year, and so that it made it a lot tougher to integrate and try to work with everyone else. Now that the ages are a little older, it would have been, I think, a little bit easier for me to do. So yeah, it would have been great if they called. I would have just packed my bags and been there in a heartbeat.
So you would have never hesitated.
Nah, not at all. I never say no to adventure. So that would have been fun. But having said that, it's been a lot of fun watching this particular cast, and I thought it was going to be less stressful not actually being in the house, but especially having some friends in there and all. It's every bit as stressful now. And now I know what my family went through last year watching me, because I'm doing the same thing watching these people play the game. Yeah,
people you love. That's so hard.
It's hard because you just feel so helpless. We have the advantage of it's so hard. I've got the advantage of the big picture watching these live feeds, and I still don't always know what's going on. So for them in there, it's not rolling the dice sometimes. Yeah, you just have to go with your gut, and sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. But I will say this, having been in the house, I have so much empathy. I'm never criticizing any person ever again, either from a judgment, what actions did they take, or did they have a meltdown? Did they get snippy? Did they cry all day? I'm not holding any of it against them, because I understand all of it at this point in time. So they're all good in my book, no matter what.
I feel the same way. As I've gotten older, I was so much more critical watching the show. When I was a kid and stuff, I was like, why are they crying? Why do they cry all the time? And it's the pressure that y'all must have felt or feel it's not normal to have people whispering around you constantly. If you were in your own home, it would make you paranoid, even just that. So it's so sad.
It's horrible. And I think that's why you see so many duos season after season, because you get to the point where you have to find some person that you feel like you can trust and depend upon. For me, it was Nicole, and Nicole with me and all, because otherwise everyone you assume is talking about you. As Kat Dunn says, they're all conspiring against you. And, it's just, it really takes a big deal of damage to your psyche going through that for so many months. And you. It is a stressful situation, but that's what makes the game so much fun, is trying to survive and exist in that kind of environment.
Well, speaking of duos, I believe our host Harland has a good question about duos, so I think he can bring it up right now.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna ask. So you said you pointed out that Ian said that we're seeing a lot of people break out into duos, but it seems like a lot of people are breaking into multiple duos. How much longer do you think until it becomes more clear who's actually going to be with who in terms of what dynamic and what duo is going to remain true?
I think you probably have another, I'm going to throw out there about 3 weeks or so. I think there's a couple of people like a Kevin, maybe an Ian. It depends on how there's a few people that probably could still get evicted that may not expose everyone's cards just yet in terms of who's loyal to who, but you're going to reach a point where there's not as many targets to go after. People are going to have to nominate people that may think they've got an alliance with you that may not be quite as secure as you think. So I think we probably are another few weeks away from that, and then suddenly, but I think when it happens, it's going to be a domino falling. Someone's going to get offended. Someone's going to think that they're in a group where they end up getting burned. They're going to call them out. Other people are going to call each other out. Next thing you know, there's going to be people yelling and screaming throughout that whole house, I do believe.
Actually, that's a great thing to talk about real quick, is because I know there was talk about Nicole potentially hosting a house meeting to, I guess, like talk about what Janelle's doing in the game. Do you think that we're getting closer to this burning point where some egos might flare up and people might really start butting heads soon?
Oh, yeah. Oh, the fuse has been lit, and that house is not short of egos. We know that. There are people in there that everyone can be nice and friendly when you feel safe. When you don't feel so safe, there are going to be people igniting. And there's probably more people like that than not right now in that house. And so, yeah, it's we're going to see a lot of people clashing heads pretty quick with it. And it's a nature, I think, of any season of Big Brother, but especially when all these people are being told, hey, you're one of the best. We want you back. And so you come in with a little bit of an ego, a little bit of a chip on you. Well, yeah, you want to redeem yourself. You want to do better against the best. And you suddenly feel like people are ready to throw you off to the side and don't really consider you quite that upper level. Oh, yeah, there's going to be some fun feats here before too long.
So, who do you think is going to let their ego get to them or be the first person to kind of blow up and start something?
All right, let's see who I could throw out there. And I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. I mean, I admire all these players, but I do think there's a few. Who?
Janelle.
I could see Janelle going off. She won't, especially if she thinks that she doesn't have a chance anyway. If she feels like her back's up against the wall, she'll easily be one of those things. Whatever, I don't care. I'm walking out this door, and I'm dragging y'all with me as I go out. Yeah, definitely Janelle. I could see Cody getting upset if for some reason he suddenly gets turned on him. Memphis has already shown that he could easily get a little perturbed if things don't go his way. Christmas is one of those who I think she feels like she's in with a whole lot of people and is in a very good spot. If she suddenly determines that there's a lot of people that just have her on as an accessory, she's not going to be real happy. Avon won't put up with a lot. If she feels like she's getting burned, she'll tell it what it is. She'll lay it right out there and take care of business. So there's a lot of people in there who aren't going to go out with a whimper. They aren't going to go out shaking hands with other people. They're going to burn the place as they walk out the door, I think.
Do you
Exactly.
think? Oh, sorry. Did you think that Davon, she was saying how she's trying to control her emotions more? Do you think, though, with her saying that she will, blow up? I feel like she might not. I feel like she's really going to try to, not have one of those big blow-ups in front of the house again.
I think you may be right. I mean, I'm very impressed with her game. I think she's playing a great game, and she's one of the ones I'm cheering for. I really want her to do well because she surprised me when she came in that she's found herself in a great position. She's working with all the sides. The only issue I've got right now with her is I almost feel like there's times where she's overplaying just a little bit. She's trying to get in too many people's ears, and she has to be careful because there could come a time where people may get concerned about where her loyalties lie just because she has done such a good job social game so far. So, yeah, as a viewer, I hope they all blow up. I hope all of them have their moments in the sun and all of that. From a strategic standpoint, I've always been about not emotion, but play the game and all that. So as a player, I admire the people that can keep their emotions in check and everything else. And she's been doing fantastic this so far the last couple of weeks playing it. So yeah, no, you may be absolutely right. She of all the people, she seems like one of the ones who really has learned from her past season. And I think it's hard to change the way you play the game because it's just your nature to do things a certain way. But I feel like she's learned quite a bit and is playing an amazing game so far. About Big Brother, obviously, a lot, but I tell a lot of travel stories and just throwing stuff in the backyard. Just a bunch of things.
Oh, yeah. I got my
when do you do it?
Monday nights, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central, and it's on the TV, a free app, TV Co. And so,
okay.
and join the crowd. Good fun way to kick off the week.
I'll tune in with you.
Yeah, me too, for sure.
We have fun. It's like I say, there's so many people talking Big Brother now, but like I say, I could talk for days and days and never stop.
Well, your opinion's very wanted, so that's good news. You can talk with very many.
Best part of being, well, I love being on Big Brother, but the idea that I then came out and got to deal with so much of the Big Brother community is just, it's a part I never really thought about while I was in there, and it's been so much fun.
That's what I was saying about, yeah, like any auditions or anything like that, any casting calls, it's like, it's so nice to just have a group of people that like Big Brother and you can all just talk about it. So I totally can relate.
That's why I guess we're getting ready to get cut off, but yeah, I did a casting call is how I got on the show, and I wasn't even planning to try out. I just got there and started talking to the people because I just wanted to see who was trying out. And I started talking to them and said, well, why not? I'm already here, so I might as well just try out. And next thing you know, here I am.
Oh my God. That is so meant to be then. That's cool. That would only happen to somebody like you.
Well, I was the only old guy there. I was the only guy in the cowboy hat, so that might have helped a little bit. But
the odd man out.
What city were you in?
I was in Houston, and I never thought anything would ever come of it. So I was a lot more laid back. I think it was a lot more chill. It's like, yeah, whatever. I'm just gonna try it.
I've known how to use the link.
Same. I was like, what do I do?
All right, so Harlan, just let me know when you're ready for me to bring up my point.
Go ahead, you can do it right now.
So, what's interesting to me, Cliff, is that when I asked you about the ego part, we had two different, like, you didn't even bring up the person I was thinking about, because the first person that came to my mind was Kaser.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I didn't see Kaser when he played his original season, so I'd heard about him, but I hadn't actually seen his play. That guy, I think he's a very smart player. I feel for him, the fact that he's twice not made it to jury and got sent home.
Yeah, both times.
And it very well could be happening again. But he's another one of those old schoolers that isn't really messing around. He's kind of just going straight ahead and trying to make things happen. I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen as much. It seems like he's playing without quite as much emotion. He seems very very strategic in the way he's doing things. And yeah, but if there was ever a person that was in there for a redemption tour type setup, Kaser is certainly one of them.
Oh yeah. See, he's a very calculated player, but if he were to lose, like, he does have an ego, like we've seen in like kind of season 6 and 7, you know. But if he does call you out, he does it very like stealth mode. Like in season 6, we've seen him say, I didn't seal your fate, I sealed your partner's fate, kind of thing, to Maggie and Eric. So that's why I thought he would be like one of the first to lose it, kind of.
Well, and you may be right, but you may be right. If he does lose it, though, it's not going to be a whole bunch of fireworks and everything else. It may be a very, very subtle ninja assassin type, just a direct target here and there where he needs to do it.
Yeah, it's very true, but there's a lot of egos in the house, so we have no clue, like, what could go down. Like, for all we know, it could be Enzel going at David, you know? So
it's like the one person that doesn't have an ego is on the block.
No, I don't. Oh, yeah, I know. It's a rough game. I mean, sometimes, especially in the beginning, we ran into that last season when Sis was on the block. She spent a lot of time talking to Jackson, saying, "Why did you put me on the block? I've never done anything to you. I'm a nice person." And he said, "It doesn't have anything to do with that. Sometimes the nice people go home. It's just it's the game, and you know, if you haven't won anything, then you haven't had a chance to do anything. But sometimes the nice people go home first, and the brutal cutthroat players are the ones that make it to the end."
Do you think you're a brutal cutthroat player?
You know what? I went in saying I'll do whatever it takes, man. I'm going to keep the game separate from the personal and all of that, and I will do whatever it takes. And if you put me in front of a Monopoly set or something, then yeah, I'm as brutal as it goes. But you get in that house for 3 months, you get to know these people, you develop relationships with them, and it is hard to stab someone in the back and do horrible things to advance yourself in the game. So I'd like to think that, yeah, I'll still do what I have to do to finish it off and do what I have to win. But I'm going to feel so sorry for some of the people when I do it. I mean, it's just a game designed for betrayals and lying and everything horrible that we see, and it's just part of it.
yeah, like, it's a game, but at the same time, it's a game, but you're playing with real players who have real emotions, real feelings as well, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, we see these people, and that's why I've made it a point to be so optimistic about everyone, because I'm the same way. I've watched this since season 8, and you see the people that you fall in love with, or you just start hating because you just think they're the most arrogant or whatever. But now that I've been on the show and I've gotten to know so many of these people from my season and some people from other seasons, and I realize that even though, yeah, they're on TV and people think they're invested in their lives because it's a 24-hour live feeds and all that, they're still just regular old people that just go home and they have their good days and their bad days. And so everyone's in there doing the best they can to play the game and making the best decisions. And sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. But that's kind of what makes the game fun, is that you put a whole lot of people in there with different strengths and different weaknesses, and it's just a battle to see who wins out in the end.
That's very well said, and it's true.
And I've had a lot of people ask me that. They said, well, how can you be friends with some of the people on your season that put you on the block early, or that were talking about you when you weren't in the room and all of that? And it's just because there's that certain bond, that shared experience that, yeah, I know they were doing me dirty occasionally, but then again, we were all playing the same game. We were all trying to make it at the end. So I don't hold anything against them.
Yeah, at the end of the day, they were the only ones.
Yeah, you leave it
They're
at
the only ones on your season. Sorry.
That's right. No, you're absolutely right. And you leave it at the big brother door, and I give everyone a hug at the end and say, no hard feelings. Life goes on. This is just one very small chapter in a whole lot of people's lives. So I've already told all of them, I said, when you get married, when you have babies, when everything's going on in your life, you better make sure I'm aware and involved, because you're family now. Whether you did me dirty or not in the game, you're still family. So I think everything works better when you can kind of keep that positive look on the experience and not walk out that door with regrets about what you may have not done the way you wanted to do it.
Is that like what you would give if somebody that was before they went into the house, like a piece of advice? That's what maybe you would say, is just.
Yeah, I've told everyone that I talk to you. Say, first of all, you have to realize it's 99 days. You can't come in playing so hard that you burn out. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. 2, you got to keep your mouth shut. You don't owe anyone information. Use your whisper voice, which I obviously didn't do so well last season. But yeah, that's the other part is, and I know I told Nicole that in my season, and I saw David tell her again this season. This game doesn't define who you are as a person. It's just one little adventure that you're taking on, and you have to treat it as such. And the big deal, sometimes it's not where you end up, it's the fact that you're willing to take the risk to put yourself out there and do something that you know is going to create stress and may or may not go your way. And you just have to kind of do your best, and then I think you can walk out with your head held high. And so, yeah, we'll certainly have some discussions, myself with a few people after we get out, and try to remind everyone of that. And
you're like
it's just a game at the end of the day.
You're there to remind everybody that they're loved and that they did a good job.
Well, I tried so hard while I was in that house not to be that dad. I mean, it's just in me, so there's a part that I couldn't help it. But I was trying so hard to be just another person in the house interacting the same way as everyone else. But I do think maybe that's what helped me in my game a little bit, was the fact that I've been on the earth for a few more decades than the other people in the house. So I've got some good experiences, I've got some bad, and I've learned to kind of roll with the flow, so to speak. And I'm not sure that everyone that goes into the house necessarily has the ability to do that quite as easily. But they'll learn and they'll figure it out. And Lord, Big Brother's a perfect way to figure out how to deal with the highs and the lows, because you'll see them all.
Do you think you would have made it as far if you would have been, because I think Harland was saying that he wants to wait until he's older to actually like pursue that. Like, do you think that if you were younger in the house that you would have had a similar game, or because of your like wisdom you feel like you made it further?
You know, being older certainly put a bigger target on my back, and I knew I was going to have to play a little more aggressively starting off, just because I was an easy early eviction if it came down to it. So I think it made it tougher to play the game. But yeah, I definitely think playing the game with the knowledge I have now is a lot easier than when I was younger. And because now my career has been spent traveling the world, interacting with a lot of people, and so I feel better about reading people and understanding objectives and all. If I went as a 24-year-old or something, man, I would have been first one out the door, because I just didn't have enough awareness of everything around me back then. So it's probably good I waited that 30 or so years before I went into the house.
I bet you still would have made it just as far.
Well, I would have been friendly, but I'll say this much: I would have been in much better position from a competition standpoint. I would have. A social game may have suffered a little bit, but my comp skills would have been a little bit better than they were this season. Although I did win a few last season, so you know, I'll take it.
We were saying that like about like Danny's arms too. Like I feel like she's like working out so much. I'm like so hyped to see these competitions. Like I feel like all of them are very like athletic and going to be able to really take them far.
Yeah, and I'm really curious because in early seasons it seemed like you had a little bit more of a blend of mental and random and physical challenges. Our season last year just seemed like it really ramped up the physical side, which made it tough. And certainly at the end, Nicole and I were expecting more mental challenges instead of those last few physical ones that we had. But now that we're talking about an all-star season, and I'm still waiting to see if they bring in challenges from all different seasons and have a little bit more of a mix of the mental versus the physical versus the memory and all that. I hope they do. I hope it's not just all that physical-based stuff. Because there are some people a little bit older, probably haven't done quite as much of the physical fitness as in the past. I was watching Kaiser, and he was working out doing yoga about the way that I would be doing yoga, making the effort, but probably not the most perfect poses as he went from position to position.
Always entertaining, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love watching that guy. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, well, let's go on to our next topic here. We have. So out of all 16 house guests, we only have 2 winners, Ian and Nicole F.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on them? Should they work together? Do you think they'll be like boots within the next few weeks and so on?
They certainly have targets on their back because of that. But at the same time, do you potentially, if they don't get booted pretty quickly, I think you reach some tipping point where suddenly people start thinking about not who's the threat, but who do I want to take with me to that final 2. and they talked about it a little bit. I could certainly see a situation where if they can last towards the end, someone may say, hey, I'd love to take a Nicole or an Ian with me because they're already winners. I'm not. And, let's share the wealth a little bit. So I think it made a lot of sense for them to team up together, recognizing that as soon as one goes out, it may threaten the other one just a little bit more. I
That is
don't
a
know.
really good point. That they need each other to a certain point, and then it's like everybody's gonna want to bring, like everyone wants them to go initially, and then as soon as it gets closer to being final two, like it is a good person to sit next to because nobody's gonna give them that vote.
And Nicole Franzel was pretty funny because she told Ian that strategy. She said, man, Ian, we need to tell people, why would you get rid of us? Because if you take us to the final two, either one of us, there's no way that you won't win against us. No one's going to award us another $500,000. And Ian said, well, you're right, but you've got to be careful promoting that philosophy because if you do, it's maybe self-fulfilling. If you tell enough people that when it comes time for the jury to vote, they may say, oh, yeah, I remember them saying that. And, yeah, I'm not giving them that money. They already won $500,000. So he suggested that maybe they downplay that a little bit. But I do think that'll start creeping into people's heads, quite another month or two down the road when we get more towards that end game.
Yeah, I bet they won't even need to say anything, and it'll just kind of, like, everyone will start putting two and two together on their own.
Oh, yeah. It's I'm sure everyone's thought of that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, Ian is like so smart. He's a really fun player to watch too with that.
I actually met Ian. He lives down here in Houston now, and so I met him at a meet and greet after I got out of my season, and we talked for quite a bit because I played backgammon last season. I taught everyone in the house how to play, and Ian is huge into backgammon. I mean, that's his passion, and so we had a lot of fun here. I got so much respect for the guy for the way he played the game and just who he is and everything that he's done. And I know when All-Stars first started coming up, I was talking to everyone saying no one would tell me who was on or who'd gotten called or who hadn't gotten called. And I told a few people, said, if you get on, I've met Ian before. He's an incredibly smart guy, and he's a nice guy. Talk to him and all of that. And I kind of suspected if they had an All-Stars, Ian would get back in just because I knew who he was and all that. So I was I was so happy to see him. And he's one of my picks that I don't know if he'll make it or not, but I would love to see him go to the very end and win that thing, or at least make it to the end. Because I think strategically he just plays the game a little different than other people do, and it's fun to watch that different type of gameplay.
So do you think Nicole F can play the same kind of gameplay as Ian and make it as far as he can, or do you think she's more of a bigger threat?
I think right now she's a bigger threat. I think her social game is a little stronger than Ian's is. Nothing against Ian. Everyone loves Ian, but he's all about the strategy, and his social game is great too. It's just different. It's just different. And Nicole is. I feel like she's had a huge target on her back, partially because she won, but also because she's been on 2 separate seasons. Because she's got Cody in there and has a connection to Pauly and all of that. And so and she was on Amazing Race. So she's just, I think a lot of people for a lot of different reasons see her as a big target. And I'll say this, if she wins at the very end, she deserves it because I think she's got a little bit tougher road to go down than some of the other people.
No doubt about that. All right. Anybody else have anything to say about the winners? Deja, Harland?
Yeah. I think if at this point, I think honestly, if any of them made it to the end, they would it was very deserving. I think that they'll have had to have put in a lot of work, way more than they ever have. So yeah. Especially you can just see the first 2 weeks. It's it's almost like they've already put in the equal amount of work that they put in their own seasons.
It's amazing. And this has been fun because normally when we do Big Brother, the live feeds don't kick on until after a week in the house. We have to wait a week, and by the time they come on, so much has already occurred. We got the chance from the very beginning to watch this drama and the stress create. So it makes me feel like I've been watching this show for the last month. It's hard to realize it's only been a week and a half or so that we've been watching. About 2 weeks now. But,
oh yeah, probably about 2 weeks.
Yeah, they're going to be exhausted by the time they get done. And what's exciting, it reminds me a little bit of Survivor last season, the Winners at War, where every person in that there is no one in that house that I dislike. There are people I'm cheering for more than others, but there's no one in that house that if they win, I'm going to say, oh my God, I can't believe that person won. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be excited to see whoever makes the moves that gets them to the very end. So mad props and respect for every person that's in there playing that game right now.
All right. Well, we can move on now from the winners. So, what do you think about the Tyler versus Danny situation and versus Memphis kind of thing?
I'm going to give you an incomplete answer because I can't ever figure out from conversation to conversation where that thing's going to. I know Tyler has talked about that. It seems like they're so trustful of Danny. So many people in so many people's ears, and I don't know who's being vocal about it, who doesn't trust other people, but they're just not talking about it out loud to the cameras or to their other house guests. I don't know. Memphis is playing the interesting game, just standing on that line between the new school and the old school, and I feel like he's still a little bit of a wild card, and maybe will surprise some people with some of the connections that some people may not be aware of. But I don't know, Trent. That's kind of a tough one. I don't have an easy answer for you. I can't figure it out yet. I just can't.
So do you think we'll find out more within the next few weeks of that, or do you think it's going to be like an unknown thing?
No, I think we'll figure out. Again, I think it'd probably be 2-3 weeks, something like that, and then some people will be forced to make some decisions. I tell you what I'd like to see, and we didn't have it in my season, but I'd love to see one of these competitions for HOH or Veto where it's not 16 or 15 people competing against each other. It's head-to-heads, and the winner has to pick the next two people, or the loser picks the next person they go against, where you're forced to call out who may be your partner you want to protect, who you want to throw to the wolves. I'd love to see some competitions where you're forced to reveal a little bit.
Yeah, so one of those competitions where it's like HOH, Veto, I don't know, safety suite, and then they'd ask you a question kind of thing.
Yeah,
and yeah.
That would be a lot of fun to see the strategy going into. Do you pick someone that's somewhere right in the middle so you don't show your hand, but then people may get mad that you didn't protect them, or that you.
Because there's so many duos. I'm sorry that took me so long. Like there's so many duos, they're not going to be able to like especially Tyler, like him picking. It's like he's got every single person. So it's who do you even pick? That's he's going to have to. It'll have to be set up prior. Like they probably are going to be discussing that and figure out. They could feel comfortable, saying that to, even though they're in an alliance with them.
Yeah, and it's tough. Even the safety suite. Yeah, the idea of, hey, if you don't play, it's going to suggest that you and I are too tight. So maybe you should play and waste your safety pass anyway, which Cody and Christmas did. But then you've got other people like Danny saying, I'm not throwing away my safety pass. I don't care what people think. I'm using it to protect myself, and there's no getting around that. But even the strategy that if you then win that safety, and I guess we've got one more week of that, what does it say based on who you pick as your +1? Are you revealing your hand there? Or I kind of thought it'd be kind of funny if I was in there and I'd won safety competition, maybe pick the person that you aren't necessarily friendly with at all, that you just soon see go home or something. Let people start suspecting that maybe that you and them are a little bit tight based on the fact that you picked them. You could probably start all kinds of shenanigans just by going against the grain of what people expect you to do. I'm loving the safety suite. It's bringing in another element, another strategic point, I think, every week.
For sure. It can throw a major wrench in the HOH's plans because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think it makes them feel safer, too. Like, I think that this house is like extra paranoid being like that, and so it's like almost like nice for them to have just one more like chance if you need it, before you need it. So I think like that helps.
And theoretically, and maybe we didn't see it the first 2 weeks, but theoretically I would have thought that whoever's the HOH would be that much more inclined to take a risk or go after a big target, because Memphis, for example, now he not only has a potential to play in a veto competition because he can't compete in HOH next week, so he's a little bit helpless. But now he's got the chance to play in the safety suite to protect himself, and he's got the chance to play in a veto competition and protect himself. So I think the idea behind it may have been to give people just that much more incentive to take the big risk at the very beginning. And again, it didn't quite work out, but I do like the fact, as you said, it gives you a chance to feel a little more comfortable for at least one more week until they go on to the next twist.
Very well, very well.
Do you think like that having them not being able to go out, like limited time on the outside, is making them more paranoid alongside with it? Like, how much time did you spend outside to make it like your paranoia relax?
100%. Absolutely. It makes it all the difference in the world. Just for y'all's information, we typically would get the outdoors, the backyard, from say late Saturday night or early Sunday morning, all the way through to like Tuesday morning at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. So we basically had Sunday and Monday that we were allowed outdoors. The rest of the time they were busy building the HOH competition and then the veto competition. Because HOH was on Thursday, veto comps were on Saturday. So we really only had a couple of days outside. And come Saturday night, the veto's been played, those doors open up and we all run outside. And it's just like it literally is a breath of fresh air, because that house just stale everything and all. But you go outside and everything just chills out, and you feel more comfortable when you can feel the wind on your face. You can see the stars, and I think as a result, you tend to get on Sundays and Mondays, people are a little bit more laid back, a little more friendly with each other. But then suddenly Tuesday comes along, those doors close, you know you're trapped inside for another 5 days. And everything just seems to swallow you up at that point, and the paranoia kicks in yet again, and the strategy, the conspiring, everything. It makes a huge difference in that house.
That's like really good to know that it kind of, I mean, obviously it makes sense, but it didn't ever occur to me that like even leading up to it, even like Saturday or Sunday day or whatever day you were about to not have the outside, like it could start settling back in just like that. So that's crazy.
I tell you what, nothing made us madder than a couple times where we had people trying to interfere with the game from outside, flying a plane overhead or yelling or things like that. Because when that happens, they make us go inside and they close the doors. And we had one time in particular where we lost a full day of being outdoors, and we were not happy campers when we were forced inside and couldn't go out and enjoy the great outdoors because of someone doing that.
Yeah, so spread the word.
Right. Yeah, don't interfere unless you're trying to help out Nicole, Anthony, or David, and then maybe I'll overlook it a little bit.
They need their peace.
They need their help.
Oh.
But yeah, we used to laugh because the other thing y'all may not know is we can't sleep in there. Now I've noticed All-Stars, they get little perks that we didn't get. They're allowed to sleep in a little bit and things like that. For us, from 10 o'clock to 10 o'clock, there's no sleeping, there's no napping. You get called out if you try to take a little nap and all that. And so
you literally have to sleep for 12 hours?
Oh yeah. And the worst part is we used to laugh because about 8 o'clock or so, people would be saying, man, what time is it? I'm so ready to go to bed. I'm so tired. As soon as 10 o'clock came, people would say, okay, I'm going to bed. Next thing you know, they're all having conversations. They're all up till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And that killed me because I really thought, well, I want to be involved in all the conversations because I need to be a part of everything for my social game. But I also was trying to get up early in the morning and do my little Cliff Notes and try to just have some quiet time to myself and all that. But we used to kid with each other saying, yeah, I think about 10 o'clock, Big Brother must start pumping oxygen into this house just because we're so tired, we're so exhausted. And as soon as it's time to go to bed, all of a sudden we're all awake, we're alert, we're all playing the game and strategizing and all of that. So yeah, very little sleep occurs in that house sometimes. All right.
Well, let's have some fun, not that this isn't already fun, but let's have some fun questions about your season.
All right.
So who do you think got in trouble the most by production, or whether it be about your microphone, sleeping, not listening to production,
All right, there's a few of them. I got to say, Tommy got called out quite a bit for singing. That guy, it's hard for him not to be humming or singing or whistling, so he got called out a bit for that. There are a few of the ladies in the group who got called out for spending a lot of time working on makeup and things like that and taking a little too long getting to the diary room. So, there was we did diary room sessions all the time, morning, noon, and night. You never knew when you may get called in to do some more talking. And so for me, it's easy. I just pop out of bed, give me 2 minutes, and I'm inside doing a diary room. For other people who want to do makeup and hair and care about, that a little bit more, it was a little tough for some of them. So, there are a few that got called out for that also.
All right. Next question. Who do you think? So I don't know if did you watch Big Brother 16?
Yeah, I did. Sure.
Do you remember when they did the have-nots for the 4 laziest house guests there? Who do you think were the laziest in your season?
The laziest in my season. There would perhaps be some people that throw me out there, although I would argue it, but I'll say I love Kat Dunn, but she may get called out a little bit. They took a little longer to get Kat out of bed some evenings or some mornings. Who else lazy? That may be about it. There wasn't anyone that really jumps out as incredibly lazy compared to everyone else.
All right. Out of every competition you competed in, obviously you competed in quite a few because you got evicted and came right back. Yeah. So which were your favorite ones to compete in, or even your favorite HOH and then favorite veto?
Well, I'll put it in a couple of different ways. From just personal satisfaction, it's got to be the battle back where I rolled the ball down the ramp and fought my way back into the house. Yeah, that's right. And then just a few hours later, I won the Patch Perfect HOH competition. So I went from the very bottom to the very top in the span of 4 or 5 hours. So from just a personal standpoint, I gotta call out those two.
Yeah, I can't blame you.
From a fun standpoint, or from what I consider to be just classic Big Brother type competitions, I really enjoyed my veto competition when I was HOH, where I had to get on a jet ski and try to take my clothes off while holding 3 buttons down. Yeah. I didn't win, but I just had so much fun trying to play that game, and so I enjoyed that. And then the other one that was kind of like that was the Coral Reef, where we were wearing swim fins and we had to hang up a bunch of stuffed animals on a mobile, like a kid's kind of mobile. And
oh yeah, I remember that one now.
Oh, it was the most frustrating. I'm not the kind of person that curses. I just never do it. But they had to bleep me out a lot on that particular game because it was driving me bonkers. But it was just such what I envisioned Big Brother type games to be. I had fun with that one. But with all that being said, there's nothing that beats playing some of those iconic Big Brother games. I got to play an OTEV. I got to play Slip and Slide. I got to hang on to the wall on Hang On Fright. So just walking outside and seeing OTEV and knowing that I was getting ready to play in that game, even though I didn't do that well and I could have gone home that week as a result, but just the idea that I got to play that game was so incredibly exciting. It was so cool. It was amazing.
All right.
I think that's why. Oh, sorry. You got it.
Yeah. So OTEV is always one of our, everybody's dream to play because it's such a classic.
Okay.
But we'll have to put aside the fun questions. So we got 10 minutes left on this recording. So we'll do the wrap up questions with you.
Okay.
What are your predictions for this week's eviction, Nicole or David?
I think if I was a betting man, I'd be saying that Nicole Anthony is probably going home right now. I think my bigger question is, does she have a house meeting, or does she call people as she walks out the door, or does she just kind of say, I love you all, guys, and I'm out of here?
I think she's the type to just say goodbye. She doesn't seem like that player.
No, house meeting is a bad idea.
Oh, I agree. There's never anything good about a house meeting. And I think she probably will, once it's set, she's doing everything she can to survive, but once the decision's been made, she'll say goodbye and walk out the door, and she may be back. I don't know about the battle back yet or not, so we shall see.
All right. Who are your predictions to win next week's head of household competition?
Oh, it's so hard based on what kind of competition it is. They had a question and answer session last. They've had kind of an athletic one for the first week, so it makes me think that this next one may be
Endurance.
Yeah, either an endurance, but there's so many people still in the house. I just trying to put 14 people on a wall or hanging on to something. It could be tough. I could picture almost just a random type event of launching a ball or
A
sliding.
luck competition.
Oh, what's that?
A luck competition.
Yeah, I could see that, and if that's the case, then who knows? But yeah, I don't know. I do think you're right, though. It could be some kind of endurance. Our very first HOH was an endurance competition, so there are ways that they can make that happen as well. And if it's endurance, then I don't know. I don't know. There's some athletes in there of all different sorts.
Exactly. All right, and we'll go with 2 more questions. Do you think there will be a pre-jury battle back, jury battle back, or both of them? Considering that we only have like 85 days of the season.
No, they had to cut a few weeks, so either extra battle backs or a triple eviction somewhere down the road, which they've done up in Big Brother Canada before, so that's a possibility. But as much I have heard, you know, they brought in all these all-stars. I'm sure it was not easy to get everyone to commit to play. Can't imagine them just sending them right back out the door without giving them at least one more opportunity. But then you have to balance that out against this whole idea with COVID and sequester, and can you do that safely and all of that. But my guess, if it comes right down to it, is I think 2 people come back in, one pre-jury, one after jury, in some sort of battle back or vote back or something. I think they bring these people in as long as they can. But if they do, then they're going to have a lot more double evictions at some point also.
That makes a lot of sense. And now for final question. Week 2.5, I guess you can say we are in. Who do you think is playing the best game, the worst game, and the middle of the road game?
I will say best game would probably be Tyler and maybe Bailey. I think Bailey's playing a great game as well.
The BB Twins.
She's kind of playing under the radar, but she's not. No one's threatening her right now. She just seems to be playing a nice game, and she may surprise some people. Middle of the road game, I would say Ian may be that. I don't know. I may put him a little higher than that. Maybe, gosh, that's hard. Maybe a Christmas Abbott, something like that, where I think she could rise and fall just based on how she keeps on playing. Poor games. Nicole, Anthony, and David are on the block, and I think they nothing against them. It's hard to make reads, and it's hard to make the calls and everything else. But all right, middle of the road. I'm going to change my vote. I'm going to say Enzo. I think Enzo is middle of the road. I think he's just doing what he has to do to hang on there and do fine. The worst play again. I want to differentiate between doing just horrible things versus just getting some misreads on the house. And, you know, I said Nicole and David, but I may have to throw Kevin in there as well. I don't think Kevin's been doing a lot to help his game out right now. I think his game time is probably fairly short unless he starts getting a better read for this house also. So, you know, there's a few people that just didn't quite pick up on what's going on in there just yet.
All right. So with that being said, we have about, I'd say, 4 minutes left. So does anybody else have something quick to say? All right. So with that being said, I'll say, thanks for joining, and I'll tune in Monday, and I'll let Harland do the rest from here.
All right, well, yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Honestly, like, it was so great listening to like everything you have to say. I think that you have like an insane amount of like knowledge that everyone can take away from about the show, just because like your experience on it, obviously, and you also being a huge fan, which is great. So it was definitely fun actually getting the chance to talk to you and ask you these questions. Well,
I appreciate it. And for those of you who want to, I'm on Instagram and Twitter. Come find me. I love talking Big Brother. You can DM me, and chances are I'll respond back, and I'll probably talk longer than you even want me to talk. But find me and follow me on those things. And I got to finish up this podcast with sign off. So SKD 143. I love my wife and I love my kids.
All right. That was hey man, I would say that was a great podcast.
Oh, thank you. Hey, anytime. Like I say, I love talking the show.
All right.
I loved it.
Enjoy the rest of your night.
All right, great meeting y'all guys, and thank you much for bringing me on.
Hope to have you back someday.
Absolutely.
Bye,
Cheers,
thank
guys.
you.
Bye. Nice meeting you, Deja.
Nice meeting you.
Trenton, take it easy. Thanks, guys.
You as well. That was epic.
That was
That
so
was pretty
cute.
fun.
I'm so sorry.